The year is 2000, and these people are waiting in line for Sony's latest gaming console. You see, it's been about 5 years since Sony broke into the brutal video game market with their original PlayStation. With it, Sony had weakened Nintendo's decade of dominance and practically put Sega out of business when Steve Race said his still famous phrase,
$2.99.
The PlayStation was hands down the most popular console for someone to have in the late 1990s, with Sony selling over 28 million units. But now, Sony wants to do something that no gaming console has ever done. It wants to obliterate the competition, and they think they have something. Allow me to introduce you to the best-selling console of all time, the PlayStation 2. With a total of over 160 million units sold since its release, Sony didn't just create a new console, they revolutionized what a video game console could be, and leaving their mark in households across the entire world. With the PlayStation 2, Sony had now just dominated the video game market for 2 straight generations. But how did Sony do it? And how did they do what no other console had ever done before? This is the story of the PlayStation 2. I can still remember the first time that I ever laid my eyes on a PlayStation 2, specifically the PS2 Slim, the console's second iteration. I didn't think much of it. To me, it just looked like any other standard DVD player. But when I put in Naruto Ultimate Ninja, I realized that this was more than a console. This thing was a mythic legend. And keep in mind, this was during the Wii, PS3, and Xbox 360 era, so playing the PS2 when there were other consoles I knew for a fact were better just felt like a breath of fresh air. When I heard the startup music, I was still a little creeped out, but nowhere near as bad as the PlayStation 1. I mean, come on, you're telling me this music didn't freak you out? That's what I thought. To begin this story, we first need to look at Ken Kutaragi, the father of PlayStation. Now, the initial success of the PlayStation 1 caught Sony off guard. Executives were finding out that as much as 40% of the company's profits were coming from the PlayStation brand alone, and it's absolutely shocking. Remember, getting into the video game industry back then, and honestly even today, was a huge gamble. Generally speaking, the industry model has been to sell the video game console itself at a loss and recuperate those losses and make additional profit through game sales. This is why a lot of tech and electronics companies don't really want to get involved in the business. It's super high risk, which shareholders generally aren't pleased with. For example, when Amazon decided it wanted to release a gaming console with the Amazon Luna in February 2022, Amazon's stock price fell, and while there were certainly other factors that played with the dip, cloud computing was a major reason, and Amazon Luna was a big part of that. So now, an industry that Sony at one point wasn't even interested in getting into is now generating the company a significant portion of its revenue. Executives that had once been enraged with Kutaragi for dragging them into the gaming market in the first place are starting to eat crow, but not all of them. There's some who think the PlayStation 1 was just a lucky fluke. Determined to prove them wrong, Kutaragi asked Sony to commit $2.5 billion for his next PlayStation 2, and he immediately gets to work. Kutaragi plans to do something risky. You see, he wants his console not only to be more powerful, but also have graphical leaps that had never been seen before, and to be brutally honest, will likely never be seen again. So, Sony, with Kutaragi at the helm, partnered with Toshiba to establish a joint venture company to produce a 128-bit CPU called the Emotion Engine. The Emotion Engine wasn't just going to be another computer chip. It was going to be a chip built for gaming. A chip that could handle 3D graphics, physics, and sound all at once. In a joint statement, Toshiba and Sony say the next generation of PlayStation is a new computer entertainment platform that will further expand the market for digital entertainment created by the PlayStation, the world's first successful TV-based video game console with global sales of over 50 million units. Notice, the statement says how Sony's next PlayStation was going to expand the market for digital entertainment. Digital entertainment. Yes, the PlayStation 2 wasn't just going to be a gaming system, but a media center for homes across the world. One of the PS2's biggest selling points was that it had the ability to play DVDs. Remember, in the early 2000s, DVD players were not cheap. So the fact that you not only got a gaming console, but a DVD player for just $299 was huge for Sony. I've heard stories of so many people who convinced their parents to buy them a PlayStation 2 just saying that it was a DVD player. Not to mention that, like its predecessor, the PlayStation 1, it was also an amazing audio CD player. There was also an Ethernet port and a phone port which allowed for internet connections, making it possible for certain games to be played online, which was pretty cool at the time. And speaking of games, this was perhaps the most important factor in the PlayStation 2's success. First, all of your PlayStation 1 games would be backwards compatible. So now, owning a PlayStation 2 meant that not only could you play the latest PS2 releases, but also that your library of PlayStation 1 games would still work. But also, the PS2 just had great games thanks to PS2 development kits that really helped developers take advantage of the PS2's motion engine and achieve amazing graphics and enhanced gameplay. Games like Metal Gear Solid 2, Final Fantasy X, Ratchet Clank, Jak and Daxter, Kingdom Hearts, and Guitar Hero really made the PS2 a must-buy console. I mean, what else were you gonna buy? Super Mario Sunshine? For the PlayStation 1, the hit game was obviously Gran Turismo, but there was another game for the PS2 that got national headlines practically as soon as it was released for the system. Grand Theft Auto. I cannot emphasize how big of a deal this game was. Also, fun fact, apparently the University of Tennessee is going to have an entire class dedicated to the game because who needs calculus, am I right? Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and Grand Theft Auto 3 are all in the top 10 best-selling PS2 games. While certainly it was a huge achievement in terms of gameplay experience, there was also concern over what Grand Theft Auto would do to American youth. And it certainly didn't help when kids would say on the evening news that the reason they loved Grand Theft Auto was because
it's as close as you can get to killing someone without being arrested or really killing someone.
Now, for some reason, if there's any parents watching me, no, games like Grand Theft Auto don't inherently make someone more violent. Although there's definitely rated M content in the game where you probably shouldn't be letting a 5-year-old play it. But either way, people wanted to play these games just to find out what all the news talk was about. And I really think that helped boost PS2 sales. Additionally, Sony was able to cut the price of the PlayStation 2 even further by making the PS2 Slim, which had all the same features, just in a smaller package. Not to mention you could get this thing in a variety of cool colors and designs. Although, as usual, Japan got all the cool ones. There were some issues with the PS2 Slim scratching discs, but either way, people still bought the thing, and it further cemented Sony's dominance in gaming for 2 straight generations. The story of the PlayStation 2 and how it came to be is one of grit, determination, and technological achievement. While we tend to think of it as only the best-selling console of all time, the reality is this console was a gutsy move by Sony. They had poured tons of money into the system, and had the console failed, PlayStation would likely be dead. Of course, it being a huge hit wielded Sony into future successes with its later consoles, and is a huge part of the reason why people buy Sony consoles today. But let me ask you, did any of you guys own the PlayStation 2? If so, what was it like? Did you use the old, it's a DVD player to convince your parents to get you one? Drop it in the comments below, and if you like this video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to see more retro gaming content.